All right, so we're gonna start the webinar. We have Maya join us as well. So I think all the technical issues we're solved, and we can begin speaking about the trends this year and looking back also in 2021. So Taylor, maybe starting with you, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Taylor Byrne, content marketing specialist here at Social Bakers, also coming to you from Prague, Czech Republic. So morning for us, I know evening for a lot of you. I've seen Australia, Tokyo, Istanbul, people checking in Singapore, people from all over the world. So just want to thank you guys for joining us today.
And we got Maya as well.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your patience. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So I'm really glad I made it. My name is Maya, and I'm a product marketing manager and the head of competitive intelligence here at Social Bakers.
Myself here, I'm Mantis. I head up the content marketing team at Social Bakers and been watching some of these trends super closely. So I'm eager to dive in. All right, Taylor, so over to you. Maybe a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, so as Mantis said, if everybody could please in the chat, make sure that you're replying to all attendees and panelists so that everybody can see, because as we go, if anyone has questions, that's part of what we're here for. Let's try to give you some practical advice as we go through. So just make sure that everybody can see what we're talking about. But with that out of the way, why don't we take a look at what it is we're going to be talking about today. Maya?
Yeah, sure. So our agenda today is split into three parts. And first, we're going to dive into the advertising and really see where and how much money is being spent across the digital channels. Then we're going to look into organic engagement and kind of examine the shift in behaviors there and see what content trends marketers are prioritizing due to these shifts. And of course, last but not least, and this tends to be a very heated topic, influencer marketing. So we will try to make sense of the data that we've been seeing in there as well.
Yeah, really curious about that last one, just because there was so much anticipation into seeing what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah, so as we get started here, a lot of people chiming in with where you're tuning in from, but also we want to hear your answer to this. We got just kind of a quick poll. We're getting through the first month of the beginning, and just as I see the question pop in, just a good one off the top. Yes, you will receive a recording of this and the presentation. It will be in the follow-up email afterward, so you'll be able to get it all afterward. But as I said, what is your marketing outlook now that we are here in 2021? So A, it's going to be our best year ever. We figured out things in 2020, and this is going to be terrific. B, I'm a pessimist, things won't improve. Or C, hey, I'm just day at a time, one foot in front of the other. I can't look forward. I'm seeing a lot of A's and C's so far. What do you, Mantis, where are we at?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see those just the kind of A and C answers, and I'm glad there's a little bit less of the B, but I think I want it to be an A. But of course, we have to approach our marketing from a point of view of C, just because. So of course, we have a positive outlook, and I think some of the data suggests that we're going to see in this presentation. But I would say probably we're looking at data, and it was true for most of 2020, a lot more closely than we used to, just because things are so volatile in the market and things change really, really quickly, and you have to be agile in your strategy at the moment.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic. I think it's the way to go as well.
Indeed. All right, so let's then dive into these trends. And again, I urge the audience to drop your questions as soon as one pops up in your head, and we're going to answer it live in this webinar. So starting with advertising, Taylor, can you set us up here? Where are we looking at?
Yeah, so here we're looking at the ad spend by region. So the worldwide, that kind of, now, pardon me, a little bit colorblind, but I believe that purple number kind of right in the middle there, that's you're looking at your overall average. But then we've got some of our regions. So Northern America up there, Western Europe, and then a lot of the others kind of clustered in. But you can really see, and this is going back even to September 2019, so you can see kind of what the end of a normal year was, and then whatever we want to call 2020. Where in the spring things really dipped, but then what we saw at the end of the year, at its peak, global ad spend increased 50% worldwide. And so you even saw greater increases in certain areas, Northern America, 92%. In Southeast Asia, it was increased by nearly 30%. So just a very strong finish to the year.
Yeah, and it's if I may add, I would say that it's a stronger solid holiday season in 2020 than it was in 2019, and I guess that's what we were looking to see. Like, is there going to be a move towards digital spending towards the holiday season in 2020, or where advertisers going to kind of tighten their wallets, because it was already kind of a year where you tried to save a lot, but it looks like it wasn't. It really went the other direction, and people really try to catch up on some of that lost revenue during this last stretch of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do also with budget reshufflings. That makes sense. We're all on our phones at home. Kind of traditional advertising, TV advertising is slowly spacing away. So where else to invest if not in here?
Of course.
Right. Yeah, if you're doing. So yeah, if you're doing outdoor advertising, or even, sometimes at sporting events, which, has been kind of start and stop depending on your region, but just keeping it digital has been the way seemingly that a lot of brands have gone.
Yeah,
exactly.
And of course, lockdowns are different in really different parts of the world, but during the holiday season in a lot of places, the in-store kind of experience wasn't there. And if you think about the amount of budget that's usually allocated to kind of revamping those stores, dressing them up for the holiday season, end of year, that budget wasn't spent, so it went somewhere else possibly.
Yeah. I just want to answer a question that we had come in. If you don't see your region in here, or you want some more specifics, please, when you get the email with this recording and this presentation afterward, follow up asking for your specifics. In order to make these graphs actually kind of readable, we don't include every single region that we can get data from, because it's just too clustered. But we can get data for your region. So please, when you receive the follow-up email, reach out to us and we can get that information for you.
Yeah, and your industry as well. So let's make it specific if you need it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, speaking of industries, as we look here, kind of a little bit different. We saw the evolution here, and now this is the quarterly breakdown. So you can really see kind of in each step what happened. And overall industry spend increased 33% Q over Q. So just looking at the Q3 to Q4 growth, some of that may be expected. The holiday spending, even in a normal year, certainly increases. But I think it's really interesting when we look at some of the specific industries here. Maybe what stood out to you here, Maya?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that e-commerce and FMCG fashion grew, I guess, is a surprise to absolutely no one here. But it's interesting to see how steady the growth is quarter over quarter as well. Accommodation, of course, it's the industry that was hit pretty heavily in the past year. But yeah, it's also, I think, worth noting that the e-commerce and FMCG, first, it's kind of like, being very stable, basic things that we need. But in terms of e-commerce, it was something also very supported by platforms development. And I think we're miles away now in terms of kind of shoppable content online, across the Facebook portfolio, across just like different social media platforms from where we were at the beginning of the year. So there's also kind of like a momentum that was kind of building up, and the platforms definitely took advantage of it.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Maya, about the platforms really enabling businesses to grow this year on their kind of social commerce practices and expand their businesses in that direction. And you really see it. Like, if you just kind of look at the Instagram kind of the shopping environment, in 2019 versus 2020, it's just the amount of features and the amount of kind of the ways to advertise and clever kind of functions that are there is just vastly different. And we're going to dive into that a little bit, of course, later in the webinar as well.
Yeah, and here's just a basic 2020 versus 2019 ad spend. You can really see there the dip in spring when kind of everything was completely uncertain, really don't know what's going to happen, and so you kind of turn off the funnel. But then by the end, just a huge growth. By the end of the year, 50%, 56% year over year. I think it just makes you confident in what digital marketing can be. It's very agile. When the world shuts down, you can still find your way through digital marketing, you can still reach out to people. And just quick, just one question I saw pop up are restaurants, going back to the industry, restaurants under FMCG. So fast moving consumer goods. So that's like fast food. So some restaurants are, some aren't. And then I saw some other questions about the overlapping of some of these. They are tagged individually. So sometimes it can be, you really got to kind of dig in. How is my specific brand or industry tagged in this? So that's, again, if you're kind of wondering or want some more details on that, please follow up with us. Our great team is ready to give you even more specifics.
Yeah. Perhaps I can provide a little bit more clarity here. So, and for restaurants, that would be the hospitality industry in our database, and we can get that data to you. Whether this data is US based or anything else, this is for the industries. This is worldwide data that we're looking at, and I think there were a couple of other questions. Can we get data for Middle East? We definitely can. So yeah, reach out to us. Entertainment, including TV industry. Taylor, maybe you recall this. Is in our database, is entertainment a separate industry? Perhaps so. I think so.
I believe it is. Yes.
Yeah. So we can get that data for you as well if you're in that industry, for sure. And insurance would be in, where's insurance? Finance. Yes, we definitely have that vertical.
It's the finance. Yeah.
So just again, get back to us and we're going to get the data to you. So yes, driving the point home, it was a pretty spectacular year for social media spending. And of course, we've seen it in Facebook's revenue as well reflected.
Yeah, here we're looking at the CPC, Facebook and Instagram, and then also the click-through rate. And even as, cost per click changes throughout the year in ways that have been mirrored in the other things that we've been looking at, like ad spend with that dip and then rise, click-through rate, just consistent, steady as she goes through the whole way, which, Mantis, I think should be encouraging.
Yeah, that's something that maybe people, whenever big world events happen and they derail a little bit kind of advertising campaigns and plans and people put things on pause, there's always a bit of uncertainty, like, is advertising even going to work now? Like, should we be advertising? Is this the time to stop? And usually, like, looking at data, it actually kind of doesn't affect the effectiveness of your ads. So throughout the year, you can see that advertisers getting the click-through, they're getting traffic to their websites, and they're probably able to make business through social media advertising. So I think it just points towards the resilience of digital advertising. And again, it points to how large those audiences are. And some of them are ready to buy, some of them are not. But the point is that Facebook is pretty good at finding the people who are ready to interact with your business.
Yeah, and isn't that helpful, right? For industry situations, you have at least that marketers can do at least some decision with the stability of CTR in mind in what otherwise would be a very complicated process, but a lot of moving parts. So it's kind of like the beacon of stability, the CTR, and at least something that we could kind of rely on to be relatable, to be stable. I just want to address one question that I saw in the chat about how this data is compiled. So as a follow-up also to this webinar, you can download the full report, and it also has a section on methodology there where it's explained in more details.
Yeah,
so that might be helpful.
You in that report, you also get kind of a lot more different data sets that you can look into. And if you find something, again, super relevant, there's an email in the end of that report, ask@socialbakers.com, where you can request any data you really need, and we're going to try to get it for you. A couple of really good suggestions in the audience. I see, like, gaming, for instance. Yeah, we should put a report together just for that industry, just because it's been really interesting a couple of years for gaming.
Well, we did
gaming.
This.
Gaming had a big year, right? We're going to be talking about it in a little bit.
Yeah, now obviously, because more people kind of chime in with wanting their specifics, and again, please reach out and we can try and do that for you. But also, we did have in the summer a report kind of on the rise of e-gaming and looking at that specifically. However, I think that Gaming, also I used to live in Las Vegas. I think of that as, more of the casino gambling, that type of gaming, but I believe we can also get you some data on that. So, kind of reach out for your specific stuff, because we want to help make this applicable to you and make it practical
Yeah.
for use.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, go on, Maya.
Yeah, just wanted to say that there is a very good comment about CPC, and we didn't mention that yet. But yes, of course, with the raise in competition and kind of difference in the budget allocation, of course, the CPC is growing. So I don't know what you guys think. Will it stabilize at some point? Of course, it won't be growing forever. I guess now, following the holiday period, it will be curious to see how it looks like after in Q1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would predict it continue. Maybe after the holiday season, it should kind of slow down a little bit. But over the long term, we got to be expected to kind of slowly rise as more of the spend moves towards digital marketing. A little bit about reach, Taylor. What are we seeing?
Yeah, so this is ad reach, again, broken down by region. So we've got the same regions as before, consistent throughout. Again, if you don't see your region, you want more details, follow up with us. We can get you that data. And here we just see that overall for worldwide, it increased by 23% year over year. In Northern America, nearly 78% increase. Latin America increased by 41%. So just it's going further, and during that time when everything was kind of locked down, what you put out there had the potential to reach far more people. And I think maybe that, is kind of tied into that increased spending and just using those channels when some other outlets that maybe you had or other options just don't seem as practical in a year like 2020.
Yeah. Maya, do you want to add something here?
No, I'm just in awe, really, of the numbers. I think it makes a lot of sense as people spending more and more time online as well. So it also has kind of like this to do with just organic kind of presence across the platforms. But yeah, it's.
Yeah. There's a difference between regions, certainly. Like looking at Southeast Asia, we have a near 20% increase, which is still a lot, but that number in US of 77% is really, really impressive. But I think this for me is one of the key points, kind of explaining what's happening in the ad space right now on Facebook. And it's an important point for Facebook to make. There's a lot of kind of concern about Facebook not growing in users as quickly as it should. And then people are kind of being a little bit concerned about its revenue. Is there going to be more advertising happening? How are they going to monetize that same audience if it's not growing? But the thing is that ads reach is growing. And that allows for Facebook to essentially build its revenue based on the fact that the same people essentially see ads more often, and there are more people in its audience are actually interacting with ads. So the user behaviors are actually changing. Maybe a couple of years back, you had that large user base, but people were still not really interacting with ads or purchasing things for Facebook. This signals to me that that's changing, and I think it's pretty important.
Yeah. One comment just that I thought was interesting from Claudia, saying consumers are also more aware of privacy and are reviewing the data that they will share, including ad settings. And I think CPC will be impacted by that. I think just, user awareness of data privacy is, kind of growing, at least it seems, and going to become even more important. And I think, honestly, is a good thing as a user myself, just being aware of what it is you're engaging with or giving over with kind of each interaction. And so that has an impact on advertisers, certainly.
Yeah. The Facebook and Apple thing is going to be really interesting to observe. We're going to be looking at that data as well. We're tracking this. This is still yet to show because this is being rolled out by Apple in January, and it takes a bit of time for this to be reflected in data. So give us a bit more time and we're going to get back to you with this analysis. All right, Taylor, back to you.
Yeah, so looking here, just year over year, cost per click by platform position, and this is the top 5 by relative spend for each. So we've got Facebook feed always at the top there, and we'll see more about that later. Instagram feed behind it, stories for Instagram, and then video feeds, Facebook, and in-stream video, Facebook. Not a whole lot of changes, and this is pretty common that if you just look at the year over year breakdowns, they don't change a ton. But any kind of rise in the Facebook feed is significant just because of how much spend goes into it. But on Instagram, you see went down a little. But then when you look at the cost per thousand or cost per milli, if you're using that language, kind of rising for most of them year over year.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
go on,
Facebook
Maya.
also, sorry, I think Facebook also provides here an example. Of course, Instagram is in general just much more expensive, but then maybe we could use Facebook Blueprint to see how actually the next steps for Instagram products would look like, because they say organic is dead over Facebook, and of course it makes a lot of sense that first platforms would want to build the user base and then make sure that the users understand the value of spending the time and the effort within the specific formats on this platform, and then of course kind of monetize it and then see how that affects kind of cost per click. So we might see also the change in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it signals, this data to me signals a clear difference between the two platforms too. And I think in the next slide, we have a bit more context on that. So I'm just going to continue here. So I think if you look at just the total relative spend Facebook feed versus Instagram feed, you really see what the platforms are used for. And if you look at the click-through, you can also see that really it's a lot easier to drive action through Facebook as opposed to Instagram. And so it points that the platforms are just used a little bit differently by advertisers, but also by users, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting to see this kind of reversed ad placement, and then we could see that Facebook feed, of course, is in the lead, but then the second and third for click-through rate is the in-stream video and video feeds, where in fact ad placements are not being allocated as much. So it's an interesting mismatch for me. It's an interesting takeaway. Could be some potential in there as well for.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that always surprises us in the data, is just how much spend there is in Facebook video feeds. It's just, of course, like the video trend is nothing new, but maybe I personally just don't engage with that like format on Facebook as much, but it seems that marketers do spend it there. I think this point is more clearly kind of illustrated in the next chart when you look at the total, spend on all ad placements, and of course it's all really on the Facebook feed predominantly. But I think recently, or over the past, maybe not recently, it's past couple of years, this trend of Instagram really expanding its placements. We've seen this happen, and they try to add new advertising placements like the Explore tab. I made this point that probably, eventually, I think down the line is going to be like Facebook with a lot of monetizable options, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think there is quite a clear pattern in there in how every format is being introduced and then kind of gains popularity and to be distinguished from all the other ones. And then, of course, all the monetization options are coming in, and I think we will see the changes in the formats and placements for Instagram quite a bit in the future, as we are also waiting for introduction of the monetization options across different like the reels and so on and so forth. So
got a question for you, Mantis, from the comments, because this is something that I feel like comes up kind of anytime we do something like this from Nina. So what are your thoughts on the use of automatic placements versus manual placements?
Yeah, this is a great question, and it comes up again and again. I think it depends. I would opt for the manual placement when I have a really specific idea about what I'm doing and exactly in what kind of context I want to catch my users. And there could be kind of ads where you just, you built it specifically for that kind of content format, and it's the designers optimize it for that content, kind of that placement format, then go for it, make it manual. And, you can use this data to kind of even guide your, that strategy for where you select. But overall, like Facebook is pretty good at finding places to show your ads where they actually work. Like Facebook has no intention to just totally, wasting your money. So overall, if you want to kind of if you're unsure, maybe then you can leave it for Facebook to decide, and it will usually find how to get your money back, get that ROI.
Yeah, I would agree that it really depends on the campaign objectives here. And Facebook is pretty reliable when it comes to kind of getting you to where you want to be. But also, I think there's a discussion which is wider to be had here, is if maybe the objections were a little bit different this year compared to the previous one, because there was a lot of space also for brands in terms of social awareness and kind of brand activism. And I'm wondering if that's something that maybe affected the objectives that a lot of marketers had online. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of room for speculation as to why sometimes the manual or automated placement is being prioritized.
Yeah, by the way, just a quick point, and Maya, of course, you know this working in product marketing, that if you are using the Socialbakers platform, I'm sure some of our clients are on this webinar, you can connect your ad account to the Socialbakers platform, and you will see where the most of your results, which ad placement they're actually coming from. So I think that could be helpful.
Right.
All right. So I think if we want to discuss a little bit more the differences between platforms, nothing shows it more than organic engagement data. What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so here we're looking at the top 50 brands on both Instagram and Facebook, and here we've got the year-over-year difference. We've been doing these trends reports, almost 2 years now, and just seeing the growth of this Instagram audience, initially smaller than Facebook, and just kind of get bigger and bigger and overtake it. And you can even see how much it's grown in a year. Maybe doesn't look like a lot on that graph, but we're talking pretty big numbers there, and the interactions to go with it. They just completely outpace what you see on Facebook, whose audience has grown a bit smaller over the year. And that doesn't mean that Facebook is dead and anything like that. We can explain kind of why. It depends on what you're trying to do for each thing. But as far as just the interactions go, Instagram is really the place to be.
Yeah, I think there's one data set that I would love to see next to this, and that's referral traffic, because I bet that bubble would be so much larger for Facebook.
Yeah, might be inverse, right?
Mm-hmm. And so we had just one question here from Carol. So is the whole perception of that IG is only for lifestyle content still applicable, or is that shifting? I feel like it's shifting a bit, especially with kind of how easy the shopping experience is on Instagram now, and kind of getting better and better. Some of that, I suppose, still kind of falls into the lifestyle. Fashion brands are going to be more common there. Beauty brands are going to be more common there. But as that continues to develop, I think it will sort of only expand. And I suppose it's just what are the users willing to engage with on that platform? Because as we all know, we're users of different social media. Sometimes, what you're being shown on Instagram just isn't what you're expecting to engage with there, or maybe you don't want to engage with it, but that can change over time. I think it's slightly shifting, but maybe I'm wrong. What do you guys think on that?
I think this is a perfect slide to illustrate that point as well. Distribution of interaction across the industries. While there is a kind of blurring going on, but if you look at really the top industries for Facebook, which is e-commerce, retail, and services, and for Instagram, which is kind of traditionally more visual platform, more lifestyle as well, even though it might be changing, then there is a fashion and beauty in top 3. So I think that goes to show exactly kind of like this different approach to different platforms, and there's no one size fits all, and we should have different expectations as well. Yeah.
And back to the point of, are there kind of other industries now starting to go on Instagram as well? And I think yes. I think we have some kind of client use cases of the brands that maybe you don't expect moving to Instagram and doing great marketing there in the finance sector, and it's really becoming a platform for everyone just because the audiences are there.
Sorry, just one comment. As we kind of talk Facebook and Instagram here, that I found funny from Tariq saying people now organize their leisure time better, maybe not spending much time on Facebook as before, as Instagram is a compact platform where there's not as much kind of clutter around. That first comment just kind of made me laugh because I feel like good for you if that is true and if your users are doing that. I don't feel like that's always the case for me personally, and a lot of people I know. This, pandemic has maybe made us worse with our leisure time than better. But I think his point stands that users just, each platform is different, and it's maybe more difficult to get someone to kind of stop the scrolling of the, we even had it piece, the 21 marketing jargon terms for 2021, the thumb stopping, what gets you to stop that scroll, and it takes a lot.
Yeah. There was also a question. So what happened to engagement because of shopping experiences? So I think we have that in the next slide, nicely illustrated. All right, Taylor, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, so here we're looking at, again, year over year interactions on both Instagram and Facebook, those same industries. Again, I've seen people asking for their region or their industry. Follow up with us. We can get that data for you. We just picked a few. We can't show everything, but we have a lot of different industries available. But kind of the interesting thing here, e-commerce, as you would expect, one of the only to increase on both platforms. But then to me, the more interesting that stands out is ones that rise on one and fall on another. So here, like FMCG food, fairly significant too, increases in Instagram, but then decreases in Facebook. And so that just sticks out to me.
Yeah. If I can bring up a question, which I think was kind of good from Amanda, seeing that there's a decrease in audiences on Facebook. Do you think it's audiences that are shifting to Instagram, or are they just like dropping off of social media? Are there other platforms to kind of reach those people who are maybe leaving Facebook? Any takers on this question?
I mean, so some of it is probably going to be even platforms that we don't currently have data that we can show to you here, like a TikTok, or or people just going and spending more time on Clubhouse, things like that, like time that they would have spent scrolling through Facebook. Are they going to others? And I think a bit of it is yes. So Mantis, you're a recent Clubhouse invitee, is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Find me on Clubhouse, connect with me. Let's chat there.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if some of this has to do with kind of just the general screen fatigue. We were so much on our screens from spring, trying to understand and make sense of what's happening. A lot of people keep increasingly getting their news kind of intake from Facebook and just across social media. And also, I think while the interactions and e-commerce interactions in particular also kind of performed in an interesting way, but maybe people were using messenger rooms to communicate. Maybe they were using Zoom as well. Maybe they're kind of like this type of need for kind of this kind of interaction towards the end of the year that was very screen heavy.
Yeah, there's a really brilliant questions also coming in about this further comparisons between TikTok, and also a really important question about the age demographics on Instagram. And are they getting older, or also like are they kind of getting younger? And because of the Instagram Reels, actually, I'm kind of thinking specifically function, which was built to counteract the move towards TikTok. I don't actually have a clear answer on this. What do you think, Maya Taylor?
My impression would be that TikTok is still kind of heavily focused on the younger audience, but also, again, there was so many kind of trends in terms of the activism, in terms of news coverage on TikTok this year and past year, that I think that also might be changing. And when we talk about TikTok as a competitor to Instagram, yes, there is this still kind of a divide when it comes to demographics and the age. But then also TikTok has been really, really good at their product cadence as well, and to monetization. So when it comes to ads, they had like a free budget of, I think, $300 for everybody who would want to try and promote TikToks and just like try it out. There's $300 for you for free, so you just go ahead and try. And then why wouldn't you do that? And that's also one of the kind of benefits of TikToks over Instagram because Reels are still waiting to be monetized in that way. So I think there's like also this kind of like product differences that we're still waiting for Instagram to catch up as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the big determinations is once you can monetize Reels, how then is Reels still then just reposted TikToks? Because while I see some original Reels, a lot of it is just it was on TikTok, now it's on Reels, and you can even still see the username and everything there. So it's just a lot of copy content, which to me shows that TikTok is still incredibly strong if that's kind of the first place that this content is being created. I've seen some questions about what's the use case for TikTok as an educational place.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of people just sort of teaching each other, not a brand example, but, protesters, what to do in different situations, being able to communicate with each other. A lot of communication there, which is, going back several years, the way Twitter was used between people on the ground to communicate. And now I think you're seeing a lot of that conversation happen on TikTok. And so that's growing the user base who's maybe comes in for one specific reason and then stays for a lot of the fun or a lot of the other things. And that just keeps a growing young user base. And I know the last time we did look at the age demographics, Instagram is maybe a little bit older than you expect. And so I do think it's kind of trending upward as far as the overall age, whereas TikTok, it's hard to call it new anymore. It's been around several years now, but definitely is more of the young, hip app to be on.
Yeah, and there's also questions about Snapchat. Like, is that more of a threat for Snapchat than IG? And something to bear in mind: quarterly earnings of all these kind of companies coming up, and I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how TikTok shook up the space in the past months. More good questions coming in from the audience. Bernardine has a good question. So in the US, there's that notion percentage of users are getting demographically older and more kind of young professionals are on IG actively instead. Do you see that demographic shift on Facebook as it is? What's your take on the Facebook demographic, guys?
It feels to me like it is getting older. And I know the data we saw kind of back that up, that Facebook kind of trending up. It's not that young people aren't creating Facebook accounts at all, but it's not nearly as much of a priority now. I think they have more well-established Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, maybe even YouTube accounts before they maybe pay attention to Facebook. However, for the people entrenched there, it is still like that news feed has made it a like basically you need it as your homepage. It's where you go for all of your news. And so you can't just kind of pull that rug out. Like it's very much entrenched there, but younger generations are, I think, going other places first. That seems to be what the data suggests.
Yeah, there are some still regional differences, like especially if we're looking at Asia, there's such a different use of Facebook across markets. In some markets, it's really deeply ingrained, and you'll see younger audiences there. But in the Western part of the world, Europe, US, it's going to be, definitely migrating to different platforms.
Yeah, I would also note here that even though the Facebook demographics is not growing at such a pace as maybe Facebook would love, or it's not as exciting to be on Facebook anymore, but it's very stable demographics. And then there's a lot of these other different platforms that, of course, demographically younger users are trying out. We were so excited about Clubhouse. There was some other platforms popping up here and there. And of course, there is this kind of appeal into trying these new formats and to testing it out.
Yeah.
But I would say the stability is still kind of Facebook's biggest thing, and it doesn't shift all that much when you look at the bigger picture.
Yes. Yeah, where you actually make money by on advertising is actually like Facebook. And there was also a comment about YouTube. I don't know if you saw that YouTube is testing a short form video kind of TikTok-like content in India, and everyone's doing that nowadays.
So here we're looking at the evolution of relative post interactions. So each platform being up at 100 at some point, and relative to that, you can really see the effect of the pandemic here on Facebook. That's that blue line. People went there for news, went for updates. You know, brands announcing things canceled or condolences, or here's where we're at right now, and people, you know, kind of flooding the platform for that. But outside of that, relatively stable. It just, you know, looks a little crazy because of that huge spike. Meanwhile, Instagram, kind of every time we've traditionally talked about this, kind of steady, almost like that click-through rate, rarely or almost never below 80%. But here at the end of the year, kind of dipped down for both platforms, but I'm more interested in the decrease for Instagram, especially because you look at year over year, and it was a decrease even compared to that. So, you know, I'm not sure what to. We had some theories on maybe what that is due to, but I don't think we have any kind of clear answers on that. I'm curious to see how it is moving forward too. What do you guys think?
Well, this for me is another kind of thing that driving the point home about the difference between the platforms and how they're being used. As you were saying, Taylor, this is Facebook. It's kind of, people were using it a lot for the news, latest updates, kind of also educational purposes when it comes to political, socio-economical situation. And Instagram, it's maybe kind of more high level content that we go to unwind. And I don't know, what do you think? Could it be that the decrease towards the end of the year has to do also with this kind of fatigue that we were mentioning before, that people would want to kind of more relatable interactions rather than online, maybe through videos, through calls online and so forth?
Right. Yeah. My guess it would be it's probably oppositely correlated to Netflix usage, you know. And it's like the holiday season was a bit kind of odd this year, you know. So in some parts of the world, we got to move around. In some other parts of the world, we were stuck at home. And I think probably it's changed the user behavior a little bit this year. And I think more data sets are needed to compare and to really say like what happened here.
Yeah, and I would also just mention one more time that while the interactions online were kind of going down, but the holiday season that we've had was highest ever when it comes to calls and messenger calls, rooms, and platforms like that allow for video chatting.
Yeah.
And I know in one of our planning, you had mentioned that about Netflix as well. I don't know how you guys watch Netflix, but a lot of times it's a 2-screen experience for me. You know, Instagram is not completely out of the picture as I maybe have some Netflix up on the screen. I'm still scrolling and things. So I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the answer. It could be, but I feel like a lot of people distract themselves even while distracting themselves.
I can't do that. I miss the show. Like I need to focus on one screen. I can't. I envy you guys.
It's Taylor's multitasking abilities.
Well, yeah, you know, there's certain things that I'll give all of my focus to, but a lot of the stuff that I'm watching, like currently, it's been maybe King of the Hill reruns. I'm gonna scroll through that. You know, I can do 2 things at once.
All right, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so here we've got the organic interactions by post type, looking at both Facebook and Instagram. And now live video is usually the big one here, but not by this much. I mean, it's nearly triple the interactions of regular video. Everything else basically decreased quarter over quarter, but live video, big increase there. And then on Instagram, carousel posts, you know, and you can have an image or video, both in there if you like. They just do well. I remember when we started putting these together being kind of surprised by that, because personally, I didn't always, if I saw that there were multiple photos, I wasn't someone who immediately started scrolling through. That has changed. Like my user behavior has changed with that. And I actually do a lot of side scrolling with carousels. So this does kind of back up what my own behavior, I would say.
Yeah. Go on, Maya.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I just for me the as a content marketer, the really important takeaway here is the live video, and that's just something that as content marketers are still trying to like find the way to coexist with this format, because some brands try, they fail, some brands try, they succeed. they start really good shows, they run it for a couple of months, then I think the content marketing team kind of runs out of juice and they sunset that show. So it's really, I don't know if we're gonna crack it. I really hope so, because there's just so much engagement there.
Yeah, and I think if anything, this is like my biggest takeaway from that slide of life is the kind of the potential that it's in there, especially I think after last year, also with the shows on Netflix, I think everybody's standards went a little bit down when it comes to kind of like the quality of production. So there's no expectation, of having some super highly produced, perfect quality content. It's more, I think, has to do with this content being time sensitive. So people are more kind of after this immediate information, news. And so it's just helping marketers to kind of be quick, be on their feet about what they're putting out there with this kind of more raw, fleeting content that's just very quick to produce and is produces a lot of interactions as well.
Yeah. And there are a couple of also questions coming in about formats like stories or Instagram Live, which we'll speak about in a second. But regarding stories, so we got the data. We're looking at it at the moment. There was something that wasn't entirely clean about it, so we're going to try to parse it and try to present it clearly in the next report.
To the Instagram Live question, we're not able to pull that, but anecdotally, I believe it very much mirrors what we have here for Facebook Live. And what we're looking at is the evolution year over year. So that green line 2020, we all know what that time was. That was kind of an initial lockdown when most of us were feeling the pandemic for the first time. And what did people do? They started broadcasting from home. They started doing different things and experimenting a lot. And we actually crossed over 1% of Facebook posts being live videos. And the surprise to me, based on what we've seen in the interactions and everything, is how much that went back down to where year over year, by the end, basically the same. And I guess some of that, maybe the holidays, you shut it down, but even kind of Q3 and early Q4, we really saw it basically in line with last year. And to me, that's just a missed opportunity. We don't do a ton of lives here at Social Bakers, but we do several. And I just think it's an easy way, because as Maya said, I believe that audiences are forgiving right now. It doesn't have to be this perfectly polished, beautiful thing. Like they understand that you're just, kind of doing what you can with it. And here we even see some of the examples of Facebook Live videos that got the most interactions. Now, I'm not expecting you to put together a 3+ hour rap battle / e-gaming competition like Real Me in the Philippines did, or all of the giveaways that we saw for the 11/11 or Black Friday shows there. The ones that get by far the most, those are going to be like giveaways or kind of big productions, but you can still get a lot of interactions from the smaller, more intimate put together things. Like you don't have to have a studio, you don't have to have the best cameras. But it's just a way to get out there and to interact with your audience. Like I just see it as nothing but a positive. But obviously not all marketers agree as we see in those numbers.
Yeah, there is a kind of a convergence happening here between live video and e-commerce again, and I think it's just Facebook really trying quite hard to make the platform. To move the shopping experience into the actual platform, to make sure that it's happening on platform, and live video is one of them. And the amount of like live content that's out there now, and especially on Instagram live about kind of the shopping experiences. And if you think about the world right now, a lot of shops are really closed, and where people are turning to see products, to see how it looks, to the unboxing videos and so on. That really is not happening in stores at all. That's happening on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, of course.
And again, it's worth to mention the platforms that are really, really enable with all the new releases and product support to ensure that there's this seamless customer experience, basically from when you see the product online to where you buy it through some checkout to when you chat about it or get it delivered. It's all in-app experience. It's as smooth as ever. It's just, you don't even have to think twice about it. It's like the minimum amount of clicks that you ever had to do. It's all there. And platforms were really, really, really quick on their feet about addressing those needs this year.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna kind of sneak in a little secret here. We had internally a conversation with Facebook, and they were really trying to kind of suggest to us that like if you want to spot a trend that's going to kind of come, upon us, it's going to be this shopping experience for live content. So do with that what you want, but that's what we know. Again, just to maybe before we jump to the next section, collaborate with creators when doing this kind of content. If you maybe as a brand feel a little bit, you don't have the confidence to go live and be natural and entertain the audience, connect with creators. Content creators can really help your brand and can elevate the content to really next level.
Yeah, so speaking of, just quick as we go into influencer marketing, test our knowledge there. Do you guys know these creators? Anybody?
The Kittles?
Shopping with the Kittles. Do you know who they are?
No, but Taylor, I bet you do.
Well, so I was not aware that that his wife or girlfriend was involved in this as well. But Travis Kittle, the man behind the jeans, there is a football player, I believe, still with the San Francisco 49ers. Considered one of the best tight ends there. So taking, someone who's at least, this is going to be certainly US based, known in one world, and then kind of trying to use that to maybe get into another area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good point there. All
There's
right.
a question there from the audience. From Tariq, sounds funny, but how does it look if we see some sort of objective or purpose to create account while signing up for Facebook or Instagram, so people can actually decide to join or not? Yeah, I'm wondering if this is the question about the type of the account. So there's business, there's creators accounts, and of course there's then private accounts, and all these accounts have different functionalities in terms of what you're able to do. Also, privacy protection is a big one. So of course, private accounts, you will not be able to share or draw as much information as a brand from those accounts if this is account that belongs to just a private person. But in general, this is something that could be changed as well. And the change into creators accounts is also something that you could apply for and then kind of go through with Instagram through their processes internally.
Yeah, I hear that. And I even think, kind of beyond like break the mold, even just for a private user account, what if I could declare what I want to use Facebook for? And so maybe I don't want the news feed. I just want Facebook groups. And so I can have it or just make it very granular, because it is such this big thing that can be sometimes overwhelming. And maybe that's why people are just scrolling on Instagram instead. But I would be interested in if that's ever sort of a development where you can really basically just block out everything that you decide you don't want to see from a platform and just kind of focus in on the couple, 3 things that you do.
Kind of like build your own Facebook experience.
Yeah.
All right. And we got to influencer marketing. Walk us through the data here, Taylor.
Yeah, so here we're looking at hashtag ad usage, and we do include local versions of this. So if it's hashtag spawn or different languages, that's factored in. It's just sponsored posts basically here by influencers, and no real surprise to me that the year over year totals are down. It's down 17% year over year, because we saw, I think, especially with kind of early pandemic, influencers, and tell us if we're wrong or if this was true for you in the chat. We heard from a lot of marketers that influencers were one of the first things to get cut from the budget. Sometimes that's just because it was maybe one of the most recently added things, or it's just sort of an easier element to cut off. And you feel like, especially if it's kind of a travel influencer, well, there's not a whole lot of traveling going on, or you just feel like it's not as pertinent. But the surprise here, to me at least, when we look at specifically the size of the influencers, the only ones that increased at the end of the year were the large and extra large influencers. So large, that's 100,000 to just under 1 million, and extra large is over 1 million. A lot of the advice, a lot of the insights over the past couple of years has been it's moving towards micro influencers. And yes, that's overall, there's going to be more of them used because they're more affordable. There's just more of them. But the mega influencer is not dead, that this would suggest. And so I just kind of found that interesting. What do you guys think?
I think you made a good point there, Taylor, about, yeah, it also depends which kind of influencers. If we kind of make a step forward, and look at the influencers through the sort of similar lens as we look at the brands, there are influencers who are, of course, within lifestyle and travel. They had to really reimagine the content they're putting out there. Also, kind of their traditional way of doing business doesn't exist anymore. Travels, PR trips, and product placements, networking in how influencers usually do it, this whole part of the equation is just not there anymore. But I'm pretty sure that there are some influencers that had a blast. I don't know, like home renovation. I'm pretty sure they were having a really good time. So there is this consideration, I think, in amongst the data that we see. And also to your comment about the biggest influencers, I also wanted to say that influencer marketing in general is not something that has been very closely moderated before. But again, last year has been a little bit different in a way that platforms themselves and kind of FTC and other advertising authorities, they were kind of cracking down and really releasing a lot of requirements for influencers to disclose their paid partnership and really try to regulate the space as it's been growing, and it's been such a huge part of the marketing budgets across the board. So then my kind of speculation on this would be that maybe influencers that are bigger, and first, yes, it's very easy to cut off the influencers as a first kind of like part of the marketing budget when you're cutting costs and you're not sure what the future holds. But these bigger influencers now, with a proven track of record with the teams, are kind of easier to adjust to this new reality as well. And also for brands, they're kind of a safe bet if they're going to invest into influencers at all. So with something that we really see the clear history and experience of like working or partnerships with other brands, that's why I think bigger influencers came up top.
One thing, and I would like to ask kind of the marketers following along with us here, is that really true though? Because I kind of think, and some people in the chat have commented, micro nano influencers are so much easier to work with, which makes sense, less ego and all that. But I kind of wonder if you really are getting the ROI on a mega influencer, because the cost is so high. And in certain aspects, I think it absolutely delivers. But I think the name brand doesn't always work. And measuring your results is key in this, because I think it's going to be really regional and industry dependent. But I kind of push back on the idea that just bigger is better in there, because I think there's a mindset that it seems like it would make sense, and so you kind of follow that. But I don't know that the results are really there. So I'm curious if people agree or disagree on that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to try to be mindful of people's time. We're running out of time, and this is the last data point. So I'm just going to jump ahead, because I just want to let people know like where to get this data, where to connect with us in order if they need specific data. Again, we're going to share the slides, and you can get to the report through the slides, and there's going to be a lot more specific data in the report. And additionally, we really encourage you to connect with us personally on LinkedIn, and also write to any of our channels, whatever platform you're using. Our social media teams are pretty quick in responding. And so it doesn't need to be in relation to this webinar. If you just ever need kind of data for your industry, if you're just curious, if you're maybe have to present in a board meeting, or if you're presenting to your manager, write to our social media teams. They'll get you the data for your industry and your country. And I think your presentation is going to be that much better. Anything else to add here, team?
Yeah, no, I think you said it. For the people who want their region, want their industry, follow up with the email that we send to you. Check out the full report, and please read everything on the Social Bakers blog. I would really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and we'll see you again, and we'll cover further trends. Take care. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks everyone.